3 years I've been the running back coach at the University of Kentucky, and just recently changed where I'm going to coach the receivers this year. We've got 4 schools here that have basically adopted the offensive philosophy that we have at the University of Kentucky, and they all coming from Coach Mumme, who's going to be here tomorrow. I think he's speaking at, I believe it's 9:30 in the morning. He's going to speak tomorrow. And but you've got Oklahoma, where Mike Leach went out to this year, and he and his staff, they did a great job out there. You've got Mike, of course, now at Texas Tech, and then Chris Hatcher, who the head coach at Valdosta State University, was our quarterback coach the last 3 years since we've been in Kentucky. So a lot of things I'm going to tell you, I feel like I'm being graded, in the back of the ring, where these guys will look at me and tell me whether or not I'm doing the same thing that they ever do, or how they were taught to do it. Mike was with Coach Mumme all the way from Iowa Wesleyan from the beginning up to Valdosta, and then from Kentucky and so on from there. And I know that he's like me, is that when I've watched this offense evolve and watch it change, is that we all have our own beliefs and we all have our own different philosophies, but it basically comes back to just a few things. Mike talked about some stuff that he's done at Oklahoma. Tomorrow, Coach Mumme's going to talk about, I think, our Y stick play and our Y corner play, which this year, Sonny Dice, who's at Texas Tech now, coached our tight end, James Whalen's. Is Coach Leach in here? Good, I apologize, he's not in here. We had coached him down, myself, and I know Hatcher, I don't think he's in here either. There he's back there in the back. Myself and Hatcher and Coach Leach have basically begged Coach Mumme to kick off James Whalen's for 2 years, and we thought he was the worst player we had. We thought he was not a hard worker and a sorry dog, and a terrible winter workout guy, and he was crying in the weight room in the winter time, and just, the guy that all the older guys and the mean guys wanted to his ass all the time. There's Coach Leach, and he can defend himself here. I know that especially myself, and we felt like that kid just was never going to make himself a good player, and it shows you how much that we know. This year he caught 90 balls in his first team All-American. Did a great job, was a great player, but Sonny did a great job coaching him. But the point I'm trying to make on that is that in this offense, the thing that I've learned, I was a high school coach in Kentucky for 16 years. And I used to go to clinics and listen to college coaches speak and the pro coaches speak. And I would walk away from the clinics a lot of times. And personally myself, I walked away thinking how dumb I was because I didn't understand. I would listen to a lot of the talk, a lot of the lingo, and I just walk away and I think, damn, I'm pretty dumb. I can't figure out what the hell they're talking about. And I know that if I can't figure it out, those guys that I'm coaching back in my special ed classes aren't going to be able to figure it out either. And back in about 1988, I went out to Iowa Wesleyan and saw a guy named Hal Mumme, and a light came on, and that the way that he communicated and the way that he taught this offense, I could understand. And so I guess that's why he hired me. I was the only coach in Kentucky that he knew when he came in, and I could understand what he was talking about. But when they talked about us coming here to speak today, and I knew Coach Hatcher's going to speak in the morning about some stuff. Mike has already spoken about some things, and Hal's coming in the morning to speak about some different stuff. And Coach Mazzoni at Auburn asked me to speak about our practices. And so I'm not going to X and O you up here. I'm going to talk to you about how we practice. And the way that we practice, there's some of you in this room that when we talk about it are going to look around and go, God, man, those guys are crazy. There's no way you can do that stuff in college football. Isn't that stupid? And then there's some others that are going to say, there's 1 or 2 ideas in here that I actually do like and take back with us. Somebody called one of our coaches on the staff the other day, an NFL coach, and he was telling him about how we practice. And he said, there's no way. He says, there's no way you guys can practice like that and be competitive. But the point is that it is a little unique. Some of the things that we do are a little different, and I know that when Mike went to Oklahoma, I know they did not copy exactly the way that we practiced at Kentucky. It was similar, but I know that there were some differences, and if you want to ask him about those, I'm sure he'll tell you. I know that now at Texas Tech, he's probably going to do some things a little different than he did at Oklahoma. And I know that Coach Hatcher at Valdosta has already told me about some things in mind that he'll do a little different. But the basis is there are some things that I think that we all believe in, and those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about. And some of you may have heard some of this before, but just bear with me as I go through it. First thing, in our practices, we never have organized stretching. When we go out on the field, we start practicing. Practice starts at 2 o'clock. We're out on the field. If the schedule says at 2:05, we're going into our first drill. A player is expected at 2:05 to be ready to practice. Now, what does that mean? That means that there's not a time period where our strength coach gets to go off to the side and to take all of our players and line them up in lines and do organized stretches. And I don't really know. Coach Leach can tell you exactly how all that evolved and where it all came from, but I do know this, is that when I first heard that, I thought they were lying. Because all I could think about as a high school coach was, somebody, Johnny's not going to stretch and I'm going to get sued and be in a lawsuit about this deal. But what happens with our players is that our players all know that at 2 o'clock practice starts. So if you're in my room or if you're in Sonny's room last year and we're sitting there, we're going over practice tape before practice, you'll look down and on the floor, there'll be Eric Homer sitting there with a rubber band doing some stretches. And there'll be guys in the locker room that'll be doing some stuff. We walk out on the field, when we first get out on the practice field, you'll see guys that when they first walk out, they'll have a trainer and they'll be doing stuff. And I know that my thoughts behind that I really like about this is that there's nothing that ever made me angry when I was a head coach in high school, or even when I was an assistant coach in high school, was to start off practice in a bad mood. And how many times did you walk around as a coach, you walk around and Johnny's not stretching hard enough, his legs bent up off the ground, you got the big fat guy whose leg won't bend down when he puts his nose down. So we start off practice in a positive attitude every day with a positive mood. And all of our players do stretch. I mean, Derek Homer for us, number 42, if you've ever watched us play, he stretches for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time. But he does it before he gets on the field or right at the beginning of pre-practice. We don't use that time for that. And it's been something that if you'll ask Coach Mummy about it over the years since he's been doing it, we have never had a problem with pulled muscles. As a matter of fact, the first 2 years at Kentucky, we didn't have pulled muscles. This year we did have a couple right into Mississippi State. And if you saw that game, you could tell we weren't playing with some of the best players. Another different point that we do, we never have conditioning in our practices. After practice, when practice is over, there's never a whistle that's blown. Everybody gathers up, we line up in lines, and we all run gassers or we all run sprints. We never do that. And here's the thought process behind this, is that from the time that we walk onto the field, from the moment that we get onto the field and we begin our pre-practice stuff, is that our receivers and our running backs and our defensive backs and our defensive linemen, you notice I skipped the offensive linemen, they're all in there, they got their own deal. But all those guys, from the moment they walk onto the field, they're running. And every single play, once we get involved in practice, every single play, our receivers and our running backs will score on every play. So if you're a running back in this offense and you're like Anthony Blight and Derek Homer have been for the last 3 years for us, from the moment they walk on the field until the end of practice, when they touch a ball, whatever drill it is that we're doing, they will score. And not only will they score, but they will score with what I call open field imagination. And that is, if I run a swing route, and my running backs are warming up before practice, we run a swing route, we come out here and we catch the ball. We're not catching the ball and jogging 15 yards into the end zone. We run the route, we catch the football, we're catching the ball, and just like we would the game, when I catch a swing route, every time I catch one, there's going to be the first guy within 5 yards that I have to make miss. And that's what we recruited him to do. So at that point, he catches the ball. The first thing he better do in open space is make this guy miss. He'll make a move. He may switch balls. By the time he gets to the end zone, he will get down when he gets to the last defender, and he will rip a violent arm through that defender, and he will finish the run. And if you watch practice, when we get into some of the other stuff, some of the video I'm going to show you, you're going to see receivers and running backs that on everything that we do, every drill that we do, they will score. By the end of the day, a running back in this offense has scored somewhere between 20 to 30 touchdowns of probably 30 to 40 to 50 yards. There's going to be a time period when we get into a drill called Bandit that we're going to go from the 10-yard line and move the ball down the field. But that first play, if you're running back and we run a swing, you may get knocked on your ass and maybe down on the ground, but you're going to get up, you're going to go score a touchdown because we want that emphasized to them. And his philosophy and coach's philosophy in doing this is that at the end of practice, he doesn't want to destroy the morale of the fact that you busted your ass all throughout practice and you've run sprints and you scored all throughout practice. and then by lining them up and having them do conditioning, because you've been doing conditioning the entire practice. So the questions I always get from high school coaches who talk about that is they say, well, Coach, that's great for your receivers and that's great for your running backs. What about your defensive players? Well, your defensive players are running after these guys all day long, and they're doing the same damn thing, so it's not a big deal. Even the defensive linemen, the drills that they're doing all day, they're running sprints, chasing, and doing that stuff all day long. The only group that's different is the offensive linemen. And Guy and I talked about this, our offensive line coach, on a few occasions about whether or not they, maybe they might need to run a few gassers. But is it worth them running those gassers where everybody else is finished with practice for the mental part of it? And his belief and my belief both is that it's probably not. Because all they do most of the day is they backpedal, we're going to throw the ball probably 45 to 50 times a day. They're going to do pass sets about 100 times a day during practice. And then during practice, we're going to have a screen period, which I'm going to go over here in a little bit. And during that screen period, they don't really understand the fact, but for 10 minutes, they're running sprints. And that's their conditioning part of it. So again, that's a little bit unusual about how we do stuff. Another thing that we never do is we never cut our defensive players. We're never allowed to block them below the waist at any time, whether we're in a live scrimmage situation in the spring. We run quick screens to where that, I've got a 170-pound running back whose job is to cut or to block the outside hip of a defensive end who might be 270 pounds. And in the spring, when I go to block him, there's no way I'm going to come in here and get him waist and above and be able to block him most of the time. In games, we're going to cut the shit out of them when we go and make that block on those quick screen throws to try to get their hands down. But in practice, what we'll do to our guys is we'll try to go to the point of attack, and if we have to, we'll just tackle them. We'll hold them, we'll have them cussing us and everything else, and then we'll tell them they get pissed and say, all right, we'll just cut you from here on out. The defensive players would much rather us come and hold them than they had to cut them. But again, his philosophy is that we want our best players playing on Saturdays. If we cut guys, sooner or later we're going to get somebody hurt to the point that they can't play on Saturday. We never tackle running backs and wide receivers with the exception of 4 times in the spring. There's 4 Saturdays in the spring where we, as Coach Mummy says, we scrimmage until the cows come home, and he decides when the cows are coming home. And that may be a 3-hour scrimmage, it may be a 4-hour scrimmage, it may be a 2-hour scrimmage. That's his decision. But from the moment a kid arrives at campus, a running back or a wide receiver, when they arrive on our campus, is that they are never tackled below the waist to the ground. Now, does a linebacker come up and knock the shit out of them? Yes. They come up and drill them when we run the mesh route. Do they knock the crap out of them? Yes, they do. But a receiver who's running a post, he's running a quick slant or a post, he's got his arms extended, and he's running like this, he is not going to get drilled by a safety and be decapitated in practice. And again, the theory behind that with Coach Mummy is that I want the best players to be ready to play. I do not feel that we get a tremendous amount out of just beating the crap out of ourselves during practice. If we lose anything, I know this. As a running back in college, I wasn't very good, but I did have to play at Murray State back in y'all. Hopefully y'all got better talent now than what it was when I played. I wasn't very good, but I played anyway, and I was slow. And I'd go out and run the ball my freshman year for some reason. Nobody else was any good either, and I got to play. And I was running the ball 20 to 30 times a game on Saturdays, and coming back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Thursdays, and having to run it about 40 times in practice and get the hell beat out of it. And I never did heal. I never did feel good. So I know that as a running back formerly, and now as a running back coach receiver, is that it makes me a lot better when I know that I can practice full speed every time, not have to prove my manhood every time I go out there on the practice field. I know there's a lot of different theories on that. The biggest thing about us in the practice style of preventing injuries is staying off the ground at all costs. Stay off the ground at all costs. If you come to our practices and somebody get into it, and you see Coach Mummy lose it, it's because a defensive back is going off the ground. He's around a pile somewhere or another. A running back is running up and falling down, and he's falling around somebody's legs. You get just as upset about them. It's because if we stay off the ground during practice, we're able to stay off of it, then there's less likely chance that we roll somebody's knee or that we roll somebody's ankle. So we try to have no piles during that time. The other thing that he strongly believes in practice philosophy is perfect repetitions. And this is something that I know that if I ever go away and become a head coach, if that ever happened to me, whether it's in high school again or whatever, that's one thing that I will demand, and that is that we practice perfect repetitions. And if we prove that we cannot practice perfect, if we can't do it perfect, that play is gone. I've seen it on Wednesdays. You know, we've got our script that we started on Sunday. We've got it out there. We've walked through it on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And we've tried to play 2 or 3 times a time, and it hadn't worked. And maybe on Wednesday, it may happen on Tuesday, it may actually happen on Thursday. And if that play cannot be done perfectly every time that it's run, then it's no longer in there. It's gone. He takes it, he throws it away. I know some coaches that, like myself, would get really pissed because, you know, it's our play that we actually got him to put in. We know it's going to work. But for some reason, you know, the guy that's running ain't doing it right. He doesn't care. If he can't do it in practice, it's not going to be done. If you can't do it perfect, it's just not going to be done. It's going to be taken out. Okay. One of the things that we do that, again, I know that I didn't script this way when I was calling plays as a high school coach, and I know that some of you all, how you all script stuff is differently. But before I go into the daily practice grind of what we do, I need to go over this to show you how we script practice and how we script the field. Okay, in our scripts, we practice in the beginning. Again, I'm going to go through these as far as the days of the week. The coming off part of our script is from the goal line, or from the 0 to the -5, from the 1-inch line coming out. And every week, we're going to have a script that is only for that part of the field that we will practice. Now, what will happen is that we'll look through the first game, the second game, the third game, but we may not ever run a play from the -1 to the 5-yard line coming out. But the thing that's happened with us is that we've practiced it on a daily basis, and I'll go over how we do that here in just a little while, so that when we do get to the part in the game where it does happen, like 1998 against Florida, we end up running a play. We end up running a play that we had practiced. What is that, the 5th game of the season? Is that right? 4th or 5th game of the season, something like that. We practiced the play for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and we've never run the play. But our kids know that at this point of the field, that this is a play that we can run, and we feel confident with it. And basically, you know, he comes out and he sees that we end up getting single, which was ease, is that we're just going to take the ball, play action, check, release late, end up sitting here, pass it, and come back. And then we're going to end up play action and throwing the ball up to Craig East if we get single coverage. And Coach Lee's done a great job with Craig. Ends up being an All-American football player. And we run this play now since the beginning of the fall practices or the summer practice sessions. Come up, make the play, end up getting single coverage. He gets to goes 99.5 yards for a touchdown. Well, the point was this, is that for 5 weeks into the season, we practiced this play every single time that we had the coming off part of our scripted practice. So that when we did have it in a ball game, is that we were ready to do that. The other part of the field is from the 5-yard line to the 20, from the -5 to the 20-yard line, in what we call the yellow zone. And in that part of the field, again, we're going to have something to where we have a little bit more conservative formation to protect ourselves. But our goals in this part of the field is we're just trying to get 5 yards to get ourselves a little bit of room if we have to punt. If they don't line up correctly, we're going to throw the ball down the field and see if we can get a big play. Again, in this part of the field, we're going to end up, the coach is going to go over this play tomorrow. In that part of the field, we may end up checking this guy to protect. We did this quite a bit this year. Like I said, Sonny did a great job with this guy. We just run a little wide stick play, a little conservative pass play that for us this year, we probably caught somewhere around 20 or 25 of those. Many of them were in this part of the field. So what we have each week is in that part of the field, in the coming off one, we're going to have usually 3 or 4 plays that we practice. In the yellow zone, we're going to have 4 to 6 plays that we practice. And when we get from the -20 to to the plus 30, or if I've seen Coach Money do this at clinics, I've seen him do it about 10 different ways, but it's usually from the plus 30 to the plus 25 is our open field script. And every week that's going to vary. There's been weeks where we've had as many as plays 1 through 20, and there's been weeks where we've had plays 1 through 8. And when we get in that part of the script, is that, in progression of how we practice the script, or in progression of the numbers of the order, we're going to run them no matter what the down and distance, okay? And let's say that on the first play of the game, we're on the 22-yard line, and we complete a 60-yard pass, and we're now down into the 27-yard line. We get in the orange zone, we're off the open field script now. We go into our next script. So the script that we do is by the zones of the field. The orange zone ends up being for us, again, either the plus 30 or the plus 25 down to the plus 12. Normally at that point of time in our conference, that's when people, even if they don't like the blitz, that's when they start coming after us. So at that point of the field, we end up running things that end up, normally we can end up getting 7-man protection, which we'd like to have anyway, because we're a check release football team. So we end up running, which several of you here do. We end up being able to run that play a lot. How we're going to do that? Check, and do those things in that part of the field. And we'll have somewhere between 6 to 8 plays scripted for that part of the field that we'll practice on the days that we do that. Red zone for us is from the 12 to the 5-yard line. And again, we'll usually have somewhere between 5 to 7 plays that we'll have scripted for the red zone. Sometimes we'll go through a whole season in which we have the same plays that we practice, and we end up running 3 or 4 of them. And we'll change the formations, we'll change the motions, and we'll add or change the play so that people can't get off of us. And then the last part is from the 5-yard line into the goal line, which is going in. The way that we practice this, Patrick, what day do we do coming off? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Okay. The way that we do this normally in our practice routine, I go through a weekly session of practices. Sunday, after the game day, we do absolutely nothing. You don't see our kids at all. The only thing they see is they see the medical people. They're taking care of that. So that's during the season. On Mondays, after we do game film, we go out and we do a brief pre-practice, just loosening up, doing a little bit of newsprint stuff I'm going to talk about here a little bit more. But the thing that's a little bit unique about Monday is we do have about a 30-minute, it's our longest true special team period. Another unique way about we do special teams is that our offense takes care of the offensive special team snaps, and our defense takes care of the defensive special team snaps. Sonny did a great job this last year doing the offensive special team snaps. Coach Lounsbury now is going to take over. He'll do all the offensive special team snaps now. And then the defensive coaches take care of the defensive special team snaps. And Coach Mummy's philosophy behind that is that he never really wanted one guy that was in charge of the whole deal that everybody could point the finger at, because that son of a bitch cost us this and that. It was all kind of a joint deal. So when Mike Leach was there with us, Mike did the kickoff return team. So Mike left, Sonny came back, Sonny did kickoff return, and then Sonny also did the punt and the extra point. So we had somebody that took care of different portions of each part of the game. So we got a little bit more time with that. And then we walked through the entire script on Monday. In other words, every part of the script that's on there, the coming off, the yellow, the open, the orange, the red, and the goal line, we would have a walkthrough. And when I say walkthrough, I mean walkthrough. We're just walking through and maybe end up trotting quarter speed. But we will go through every single play that we have scripted for that week on Monday. When we finish, we'll gather up. Some guys may have done some jogging and all that stuff, loosening up. And that's it for Monday. On Tuesday,
Do you ever have problems getting ready, up to the coaches getting ready?
No, not really. We've usually had it done by somewhere around 90 by lunchtime. That doesn't mean it won't change some, that there may be something that changes a little bit. And usually there is, Brent, there's usually 1 or 2 things that will change a little bit. The biggest thing that happens is deletion. It's normally not addition, it's normally deletion. We've thrown in a lot of stuff and we start cutting it as the week goes by. That happens more than it does adding to it.
How do you watch the game film?
On Monday,
Yeah.
just as soon as we get there at 1 o'clock, we meet with the players, and we usually give it from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and we're on the field at 3, and we're usually off by 4 on
How do
Monday.
you watch the special team?
4 to 4:15. So the special teams meet separately. Like Dan this year will have a time after practice that coach will give him 15 to 20 minutes. And he'll have to sneak time in before and after. And he'll give him 15, 20 minutes to go in and get it done. It's not as easy as what it would be if we just said, "Bam, all special teams are meeting." So what ends up happening with us is we end up borrowing from the defense. We borrow a player from them. We don't want any of them. We don't want a damn player from over there, but as it turns out, we always have to get one because, so-and-so got hurt. Now we gotta get one. Now they're doing something. We wanna do something with him, we can't get them, so we'd rather not have them, but we always end up having to get one or two of them before it's over with. So that's Monday. On Tuesday's practice, without going through the whole practice deal, which I'll do here in a minute, what we end up doing on Tuesday is we end up doing coming off, yellow, and open field in our pass skill and in our team. We don't practice goal line, we don't practice orange, and we don't practice red on Tuesday. We practice open field on both days, but on the first day of the week, and again, that can be turned around. On Wednesday, we'll then do red zone, orange zone, goal line, and what's the open? So the open field script will be practiced every day of the week that we have practice. But the other zones of the field will be divided up because there's not enough practice time. Again, coach's philosophy is to try to never be on the field for more than 2 hours of practice. So we're trying to get all this done in that period of time. On Thursday, it changes just a tad in the practice deal in that we will coach Hatcher tomorrow when he does his little deal. He's going to go through a special deal that we do on Thursdays called Scramble Drill. Every Thursday, we will go through our drop back passes and we will go through the scramble part of it, and where everybody goes from the quarterbacks begin to scramble. That's probably been one of the best things that I've learned from being there. I watched Oklahoma spend, I know Mike did a good job out there at Oklahoma doing it, but we're probably 5 to 8 touchdowns, sometimes many more than that. I know there's been years about Valdosta where it was 10 to 20 that came off of the scramble drill stuff that they do. So it's a very important part for us that we do on that day. Then we go to the stadium. We always, our practice field is away from the stadium. We walk over about half a mile over to our stadium. When we go into the stadium, we deal with, if it's an away game, we're going to deal with crowd noise for that practice. And what we do is we have our whatever they call them, people that deal with that stuff, come in and set up speakers all over the stadium. And we turn on the crowd noise. They got our crowd noise tape, where it sounds just like a game. And they're yelling, Mike Keller, kills my ears on that day. Coach Mommy actually wears stuff in his ears, so he doesn't hear it. But I never could wear stuff in my ears because I was in charge of substitutes. So Scott, on Thursday, get ready, you can't wear any stuff in your ears this time because we're changing on that. We deal with crowd noise on Thursday in our practice deal for the entire scripted part of practice. Anytime that we're playing an away game, we're playing a home game, of course we don't worry about it. We're playing an away game and we practice that for that day. And then we go through our entire script, everything on there, and the goal of every practice, of course, is perfect, but especially every Thursday, the one thing that happens on our practices is that since we've been in Kentucky, I'm going to guess that it's somewhere around 4, maybe Hatcher will know exactly, is that we've had probably 4 perfect practices as far as we were 62 out of 62. We were 59 out of 59. Hatcher will tell you that he owns the record, that he was perfect most every practice while he was at Valdosta, but at Kentucky, Vernon Couch wasn't quite as good as him, so we didn't have as many reps. We will try to shoot for that, and it's a big deal. Nobody says a word about it, but all of a sudden, about 15 plays left to go, you'll start feeling the tension of the receivers of the quarterbacks, because they know, no word's ever been spoken, but they know that we've got a good day going, is that we can have it. So there's a lot of days that the ball won't touch the field.
Against the scout.
We do this against the scouts, and if you come and watch, the way that we do our stuff, Rob, is that our scouts are, the guys that have come over that probably aren't playing at all for our defense, and they learn. It's another thing about how we practice. Give us a good look, bust your ass when we want you to bust your ass. Don't fuck up and intercept the ball. Okay? That's the bottom line is, and you'll get like, our quarterbacks usually play safety. And that's again another unusual thing about what we do is our backup quarterbacks will be playing safety. Again, I don't want Mike to get that, but at our place, we would take the two backup quarterbacks, and they would play the safeties on the other team because they watch most of the film during the week, and they would try to give the looks that they knew that they were supposed to give during the week. And they would know, they know all the audibles, all the checks, and every now and then you'll see, what quarterbacks that will read everything, know exactly what's going on just a bit. They'll come in and make an interception, style, and slam the ball down and all that stuff. But the main thing for those defensive guys is give a great look for us, but don't screw up and make too many plays over there while we're doing that. So, and then the last part, when we finish the script, is that we do about 20 plays. We do every special team situation that we can think of as possible. And we have a manager, a trainer, manager, I guess what you call it, the equipment guy, who's been there through 4 head coaches now. He knows probably more football than a lot of us do. And what he does is that he will script all the special team situations. Not only on Thursdays does he have it, he'll hand it out to everybody. All of us that are involved, I never had to worry about it. But Sonny would get that script, and he would know exactly what the situation was that was coming up. Okay, on that day, he knows it. So we're all off on the sideline, just like we are on game day. Everybody's on the side. Defense tries to stay on one part. We try to stay on another part of our sideline. If he has a megaphone, he will call off, kickoff, kickoff. So now our kickoff return team will go out on the field, and they'll go like this. You say, kickoff, defensive emphasis. Kickoff, defensive emphasis. So that means that if there's something carded that the defense wants to see, our guys will run out real quick, look at the flash of the card, defense lines up, we kick off, and that means defense gets to win that snap. Because we almost got East hurt one time on a kickoff deal where a guy was just running too fast, and we kind of nipped him on the knee, didn't think he was going to get to play. So we always tell whose emphasis is, and that tells our players that they get to win that snap. So it's their emphasis for that snap. We'll go through the entire special team script of everything that could happen, along with a play in between. In other words, we'll go punt from the -1, punt from the -1. Okay, so we're on the -1 yard line and we're punting. Okay, we'll punt the ball comes out. Next thing it'll be offensive ball, 1st and 10, and we'll go out and we'll run a play. Normally, that's when our backup quarterback gets his snaps for the week. And another unusual thing about how we practice is that our backup quarterbacks don't get very many snaps. It'll be interesting to see how Chris does that and how Mike did that, but I know that at Kentucky, in the last 3 years, I know last year that our backup quarterback probably didn't get maybe 15 snaps during practice the whole season. Now, he better prepare his ass off, and we've got a short script for him if something happens going into the game. But we just don't. Coach Money firmly believes that the only way that we're going to get good is to have perfect reps and perfect timing with the quarterback and the receivers, and that's just the way that we do it, so they don't get very many reps during practice. But on Thursday, he gets the reps. The backup gets the reps when we get to this part, not during the other part, but when we get to this part, he gets the reps. And a lot of times on Mondays, he'll also get the walkthrough snaps when we're doing walkthrough. He'll get to take those snaps and you get that. And one other thing about this, and I was going to do this, and I don't think, how am I doing on time?
Got 10 minutes, Coach. We can't take that side of the board.
Okay.
Take it
All right, got it. One of the things that we do with special teams that I really think is good on a normal day, on a normal practice day, and go through just the routine real quick. Is that when we go through our practice day, there's going to be a time that when we finish Pascal, right before we go into team, is that we have a 5-minute special team period. That 5-minute special team period, the way we do it is that we'll have the defense on one side and the offense on the other side like this. We have our manager out here in the middle. He has 6 plays scripted that he has scripted that no coach knows what those plays are. Coach Mundy doesn't know what they are. But it's a different special team situation that we're more than likely to see throughout the year. He scripts them all at the beginning of the year. And none of the coaches know. So if Sonny's over there coaching, he's in charge during the game time of getting a certain special team on the field, personnel, and all that stuff. He knows that when we get to this period, that he has to be ready on every snap. So the manager calls out the special team snap, the defense sends out their guys, we send out our guys. So it might be the first snap is punt from the -1. So now the defense sends out what they're going to have from the -1 yard line coming out. Okay, as far as a punt return type deal, we're going to have our safe punt into the game. So we go through that snap, we do it, whatever happens, we got it on film, we'll move on to the next snap. The next snap might be punt after, or kickoff after safety. So now the defense has to make their adjustment, whether they're going to punt or whether they're going to kick. We all have to adjust to how we're going to line up on the field. If we go through 6 snaps and we have a 5-minute period to do that, I think it's really a great way to make everybody think, especially the coaches, especially the coaching staff on the sideline, on making sure that they get people into the game. And we're also, during that time period, normally going to show our defense about every fake punt that's been created by mankind.